haven't seen my kids. I'm tired. I'm hungry. Still have no power. I have no gas to get to my kids. I don't know where to get gas. So there's that.
People are desperate for the basics 4 days after Hurricane Helene made landfall, especially out there in North Carolina, where despite being hundreds of miles away from the center of the storm, entire regions have been destroyed. I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. And as we come on the air tonight, we are getting word that in the Middle East, Israeli ground troops have begun to move into Lebanon. The IDF right now is calling that operation limited in scope, but the details are still coming in. We're going to get to that developing story in just a bit, but we're going to start tonight with a focus on the catastrophic path of destruction Hurricane Helene left across the southeast as millions are facing a long road to recovery there. That storm has killed at least 120 people across 6 states. Hundreds more are still missing. Right now, North Carolina is facing some of the most critical conditions. Neighborhoods are underwater. People are going days now without power, gas, fresh water, food, even cell service. And making matters worse, rescue crews are having a hard time reaching people.
Our recovery efforts continue, but we have landslides that we're dealing with at this point. And then with those landslides, of course, we're having challenges recovering folks.
Take a look at this. This is how people in one community are confirming they are safe by writing their name down on that tarp right there. Again, because communication is so bad in some parts, people can't even get in touch with their loved ones. And that is what hope looks like today. Names scribbled on that tarp. FEMA help is already pouring in. This alone is just 100,000 pounds of supplies that are headed to North Carolina. But the damage is still widespread across the southeast. In Tennessee, some communities are so cut off, the only way to rescue people is by airlifting them out. In Florida, where Helene's destruction started, this is what some communities look like. Piles of sand covering roads and burying cars, homes ripped apart and debris still scattered everywhere. President Biden earlier today said he plans to visit impacted areas later this week and suggested the scope of the damage could require special funding from Congress. We've got team coverage tonight across the southeast. Let's start with NBC News' George Solis in hard-hit Asheville, North Carolina. And George, walk us through the scope of the damage behind you there. How are people getting by right now?
Gadi, it is challenging. Cell phone service here is still spotty. Officials telling us that there are cell phone towers here that have been put up temporarily just to give people a chance at some signal to call their loved ones, but it is still tricky at best. Behind me, you can see waters here are still pretty high in some areas, and that's not saying it hasn't receded, but it is still just rampant. And where it has receded, some business owners are actually seeing the devastation firsthand. You can see the despair on their faces as they try to figure out how they're going to clean this up. Today, we spoke to business owners who are on the phone with their insurance companies because they feel it's the only thing they can do at this point as they wait for that federal help to get here on the ground. And on that note, we did talk to the administrator today that says there are 1,200 personnel here right now in Asheville, but a lot of people telling us, especially these business owners, that they're just not seeing them here fast enough, and their reaction to all of it is just heartbreaking. Take a listen. How frustrated are you by the lack of federal response here?
Oh, we're very frustrated by it. I mean, there's no way to get in, no way to get out. It's all of our businesses down through here. I mean, we lost everything. This is how we feed all of our families. And we've been here for 30 years in the same building for 30 years.
Yeah, again, just livelihoods completely lost in this storm. And again, even though you are starting to see some improvement with those cell service and some power being restored, the big question here for a lot of people is when that crucial utility water will be restored. A lot of that is starting to look scarce day by day here as people are actually getting in line to pay for water wherever it's being sold because it is starting to run out here in this community, Gadi.
And George, I've been glued to your coverage all day long, and that frustration is very strong. And I've seen you press federal officials on why they haven't been there sooner and why there doesn't seem to be enough aid going around right now. What is their response to a lot of the frustration that you're seeing?
Yeah, Gadi, we pressed the FEMA administrator today during a news conference, and frankly, they're saying we're not going to sugarcoat it. This is a monumental task for an area that really wasn't expecting this kind of level of devastation. They're saying they're here on the ground. They're actually embedding with some of those resources that are coming in from other states. So they are here and they are going to be providing those services, but they're actually relying on some of the people in some of these hardest hit communities to tell them that they're in need, which you can imagine is a big challenge when some of them can't actually communicate amongst themselves or let alone call their loved ones. But the FEMA administrator assuring me that if someone is in need, their team will be there to give them the resources, the food, the water, whatever they need. But again, residents saying it's not happening soon enough. Here's a little bit more of my conversation with the administrator.
What I really need from you is if there's a community that you're hearing that has not had anything, they have not seen anybody, please let me know, because that's going to help us make sure I can move resources in there. I need everybody's eyes to make sure I'm not missing everybody.
Yeah, Gadi, again, that's the commitment from the administrator that they are going to help everyone. And we have seen some choppers here in the air where they're going to be dropping some of these supplies. And we did see a lot of those pallets of water and food here on the ground. So we know that those resources will soon be getting to those people that need it the most. Gadi?
We really appreciate you being out there and holding them to it. George Solis, thank you. Now let's bring in the mayor of Asheville, Esther Mannheimer. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Mayor. What are your most pressing needs right now?
Right now, we are still in a crisis mode. We are still in recovery, literally trying to recover, unfortunately, folks that have perished in this tragedy, and also confirm whether or not there are folks that we just simply haven't reached yet that are still in remote areas that are cut off because roads are washed out, bridges are washed out. But our most pressing need after life-saving measures is water. We have our water systems down. We need to be able to bring in drinking water. That started happening on a large scale today, and we're going to need to continue that effort because we could see a loss of our water distribution system for possibly weeks. So we need to continue to bring in water, drinking water for folks, non-potable water for folks so they can flush their toilets, basic things like that. We also need food. We have a long list of items that you can imagine every household would need. If you have children, you need baby formula, you need diapers, we need just cleaning supplies, all kinds of things that you need when you have a situation where you have no power, no water, and you just need to make sure that people can get by each day.
Mayor, you're describing so much need there, and then we're showing roads that don't exist anymore and breaks in a lot of the infrastructure there. How is the infrastructure, and are you able to get to all those places where people are in need?
So Asheville is in the center of a county, Buncombe County, and a lot of what you're seeing is in the city, but also outside the city. So that you're looking at image right now. Down in our Biltmore Village, which is in the city. So we have catastrophic failures of our transportation system throughout the city. So roads washed out, bridges washed out, still places because we have no communication. I can't emphasize this enough. People's cell phones don't work. There's only various spots now where people can use a cell phone. So if you're stranded in an area that is not reachable yet because your road is washed out and people are still looking for you and they haven't heard from you, we're still in that situation right now. So it is dire. You're looking at historic flooding. The rivers reached heights that have never on record been reached before. And so we have a total catastrophic loss here in our community.
And I know every single inch, it looks like, of Asheville has been touched in one way or another by this destructive tragedy, really. And we're hearing a lot of frustration from residents, a lot of fear from people down there. In fact, I think NBC's George Solis caught up with somebody that lives down there a little bit earlier. Here's what they had to say.
If we don't get help from somebody soon, I mean, this will be probably the end of it. And just 40 years in the family business, it's going to be shut down just because of this.
And Mayor, I'm sure you're hearing those types of stories over and over and over again when you go out. Long term, How do you see the aid coming into Asheville, and how do you see the rebuilding process? And I know it's very, very early on, but does it seem like there is aid coming in from the federal government?
Yes, I mean, so let me be clear. First of all, we were cut off from the world. All of the major highways into Asheville weren't even functioning. There were landslides. We now have one open to the south. The governor was here today. The Emergency Operations Center for the state is activated and helping us. We have FEMA on the ground here. The president called me again today, and we spoke on the phone. He is going to put in a request to the Congress to fund the rebuilding effort here. He promised me today on the phone that they will not leave us until we are out of this situation. And we're going to need all the help we can get, obviously, for a city like ours, for a county like ours. The rebuilding effort that you're looking at here is beyond any kind of financial means we would possibly have, which is the point of a congressional support to help rebuild our community, because we're going to need that. But right now we have emergency needs. We need resources brought into our community. That's started to happen on a larger scale today, and we need that to continue to pick up. We have an incredible community. We have an army of volunteers that are ready to distribute any kinds of resources that come into our community. We have all kinds of aid organizations that are activated. All day I'm getting texts and phone calls to my phone of different organizations offering to help and actively on the ground helping us now. Just need to know where to bring their tractor trailers, where to set up their sites, and we've got the folks here that are ready to help distribute it. And let me just say, people here have been amazing. Our first responders working around the clock. It has truly been astonishing to see. It's amazing. We're a strong community, but this is the biggest test we've ever faced.
And so much work still to be done. Mayor Manheimer, our thoughts are with you and all of Asheville tonight. Stay safe, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Joining us now is retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who is the commander of Joint Task Force Katrina, the hurricane that ravaged New Orleans and the surrounding area back in 2005. Thanks so much for being here with us. Some officials are calling Helene, North Carolina's Katrina. I wanted to ask you, how are they similar and how are they different?
Well, it's a total destruction of the infrastructure. The difference is Katrina destruction along the coast was about 125 miles. This storm came in as a Category 4 and caused destruction 600 miles long across 3 primary states with impacts on 2 other states. So that's the difference. Katrina was concentrated along the coast, and this storm happened with the third phase of it in North Carolina in the mountains, where you had a concentration of water. And that is the challenge, 600 miles long of destruction.
That is some perspective there. I mean, based on your own experience with Katrina, right now, what do you think the most pressing need is for people there as well as first responders?
Well, for the governor to get off his AZZ and ask for more helicopters. They are trying to do this with 22 helicopters. I had over 200 helicopters in Katrina, 20,000 federal troops and 30,000 National Guard. This is spread over 3 states. So no 2 disasters are the same, but they need more helicopters to be able to get aid into those places that are isolated. You just talk to the mayor, they're going to be in pretty good shape in the coming 24 hours because they got an open road. But you still have parts of communities in North Carolina that's totally isolated, and they require air sets. Why are we fooling around with 22 helicopters when we have helicopters, federal helicopters at Fort Liberty and formerly Fort Bragg? We got an air assault division at Fort Campbell, and we got a aviation brigade at Fort Stewart, Georgia. Why aren't we using those federal helicopters to come in and provide? If you can do this with 22, think about what you could do with 80 or 100. That way, every community could have a dedicated group of helicopters to fly in water and food. And the other thing, they got to get people evacuated. You cannot maintain that many people in this community on bottled water. So they got to get people evacuated. They can't sustain this based on bottled water and porta potties. It won't happen.
Lieutenant General, it's such a good point about the helicopters. Logistically speaking, how difficult is it to get those helicopters activated now if they weren't already pre-staged?
Those helicopters are ready to deploy 24/7. They could be there within 12 hours, if not 6, and be prepared to start distributing supplies. It's just easy. All they have to do is pick up the phone and say, we want federal helicopters, and they'll be there. The Secretary of Defense has already created a Joint Task Force headquarters for North Carolina. I don't know why they're not using more helicopters. And the backup helicopters they use come from states up north, like New York and Connecticut. And we got federal helicopters within 100 miles of this place. So I don't know why the hell they're not using them.
Lieutenant General, what you're saying makes way too much sense here. Hope they're listening. Thanks so very much for joining us tonight. We're going to turn now to NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson, who is in Tennessee. Priscilla, how are search and rescue efforts going? And I'm not sure if you were able to hear what the Lieutenant General was talking about just now. Do you think helicopters would help in the area that you were in right now?
Well, Gadi, they certainly would be helpful. I think any additional resources would be helpful. But the helpful thing for this community is that they are within about 30 minutes of other towns that do have all of the working infrastructure. And so that has been helpful. But we did just receive an update from the Tennessee Emergency Management on the situation with the folks who are missing. They say that that number of unaccounted people is now down to 100, but they have raised the death toll here now from 3 people to 6 people confirmed dead due to storm-related issues. And so they are continuing to search for those unaccounted folks. We were out speaking to families earlier today at a press conference as they were holding up pictures of their loved ones to officials demanding answers because we know that officials had been recovering remains, but they had not yet been confirming that they were a part of this storm-related death toll. But we do now see that those numbers are going up, and so people are beginning to get more answers. But still, there are about 100 people that they say are still missing. They say they have 100 teams in the field searching for those people, searching through debris piles for any remains. But they did say today that this is no longer a search and rescue operation, but that it is a search and recovery operation. So that death toll likely to rise here. Gadi?
So heartbreaking. Priscilla, we actually just saw some images from last week of how fast the floodwaters were rising, and they surrounded that hospital in Tennessee. I don't know if we still have that, but I wanted to ask you about that. It's something that a lot of people have been talking about. How are they recovering?
Yeah, very dramatic rescues at that hospital. They had helicopters going in to get people off of the roof. Originally, they had planned to shelter in place there, but as those waters rose so quickly, they realized they had to get out. And I spoke to Dr. Sean Oceanbine, who was sort of running that operation there at the hospital. He was the last one to be evacuated off that roof, and he described those harrowing moments as they were trying to get patients out. I wanted you to hear from him how he described it.
There were literally flowing rapids, probably 6 inches to a half a foot to a foot high, flowing within the building. And every team member, even with that, were pushing those gurneys to get them out through the doors, to get them back into an eddy behind the hospital. And that's where we used ladders from the fire truck to get on the roof because
So you all hoisted those patients onto the roof?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we did. Some of us carried individual patients on our backs. We just didn't know how much time we had.
Thankfully, all of those people were evacuated safely and alive. But Dr. Oceanbine says that they are still searching for some of their team members who have gone missing after that evacuation occurred. Now, they have set up a mobile medical hospital tent in this area for folks. And the focus there is really on mental health resources as people in this community are dealing with a lot of trauma from those types of evacuations that you just heard about, and also the sheer destruction and damage all around. Gadi?
Team members missing as well. That's terrifying. Priscilla Thompson, thank you. And now to Florida, where some neighborhoods along the coast are buried under feet of sand and trees, and where tens of thousands of people are still without power. This is the aftermath of Helene in St. Petersburg. Today, people there looking at days, weeks, maybe even months of cleanup.
Unbelievable. We've owned this house for 34 years, and this is by far the worst.
NBC News correspondent Gadi Venegas is in Treasure Island, Florida. Gad, how are things looking right now?
Gadi, so most of the damage here came from the storm surge. I mean, we're about 100 miles away from when the storm made landfall, but it was so big that it pushed a lot of the water from the Gulf onto these beach communities. Authorities here say that they had between 2 to 6 feet of water go into these homes. You can see this large tree that was pushed down essentially with the water that came in. Now, one of the things that happened here is that the Gulf water pushed all of the sand that was on a beach. All this water that you're looking at, that used to be a beach. That was about 50 feet of beach going into the Gulf. Well, that was pushed in. So the sand that we're now standing on is essentially going into these neighborhoods. Now, earlier today, we met Rob, who owns this home. He came with his wife from Minnesota to assess some of the damage. Firefighters helped him take out some of the debris. This is his old refrigerator from downstairs. We've got chunks of a tree, and I'm going to walk over here so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. There's sand everywhere. This is what used to be a game room. There was a bathroom, a wall that's missing, a garage. Now, it looks like this place has been abandoned for years, right, with all of this sand. All of this from that storm surge that essentially ruined everything in the first floor. And if you walk down the street in this neighborhood, Gadi, there were cars in these garages that were pushed out of the garage with that storm surge. This is the type of damage that people are finding in their properties all along these barrier islands. We're west of the Tampa Bay area. We're in Pinellas County, and just so you can get an idea of the type of damage, county officials here report 12 to 13,000 residential structures suffering major damage. We're going to hear from one of the captains we spoke to with the National Guard who had this to say about the damage. What is the destruction like?
That's exactly what it is. Absolute destruction. It looks like a war zone here. Cars, piles of dirts on cars, windows busted open, garages completely flooded, houses catching on fire, just complete destruction.
And Gadi, the search and rescue missions ended yesterday here. A lot of residents returning to their homes, business owners or people that have these homes as a vacation home coming in to find this type of damage as the assessment of the damages and the cleanup begins. Gadi?
And Quad, I mean, it's dark behind you, and you don't realize that until the sun goes down, and all of a sudden these areas that look like the world has ended are in pitch blackness. So can you tell us the latest on the power situation there and what's happening in the dark? Are there curfews in place?
Gadi, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are still without power. You're right. It's dark. We spoke with Rob earlier. He was worried about that whole situation. He made sure he turned down the breakers so whenever they do get power back, there's no electrical issue. They've had issues with fires with some of the homes in this neighborhood and the entire Barrier Island area because some of these homes still had power, but the water damaged the electrical system, and that caused some fires. So that's been one of the issues. Gadi, there's also been another issue with electric vehicles and any type of lithium batteries. Some of those, after the salt water touches them, then those can also catch on fire. So these are the types of issues that they've been dealing with as this cleanup continues.
Guad Venegas, thanks so much for showing us what's happening out there on the ground right now. Guad, thank you. And some breaking news tonight. Baseball legend Pete Rose has died at the age of 83. Rose was the all-time hit leader in Major League Baseball, but he was never elected to the baseball's Hall of Fame because he was banned from the sport after betting on his own team both as a player and a manager. His ban came in 1989, but he refused to admit he did it until 2004 when he wrote about it in his autobiography. Rose played for 24 seasons, most notably for the Cincinnati Reds and the Philadelphia Phillies. He finished his career as a 17-time All-Star and 3-time World Series champion. He retired in 1986 with 4,256 hits, a record that still stands today. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, U.S. officials say the incursion of Lebanon has begun. We've got the latest from the ground there and what this means for a region already in turmoil. Plus, a massive chemical plant forces tens of thousands of people to evacuate in Georgia when it catches on fire. NBC's Priya Sridhar is on the ground there with the latest. And the debate over AI in California. Governor Newsom vetoing a bill that would create the country's first safety measures over the new tech. But why? We're going to get into that and the future of everything. It's coming up next, so stay tuned. And the situation in the Middle East is developing fast. It looks like Israeli troops have entered Lebanon on the ground. That's what U.S. officials are telling NBC News, with the IDF now calling it, quote, a targeted operation. The Israeli military has ordered the immediate evacuation of civilians from their homes in southern Beirut in the last few hours. And all this, as the Lebanese health ministry says, Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 95 people in the last 24 hours. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin in Tel Aviv and NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kuby in D.C. Aaron, starting with you, talk to us about these targeted attacks or incursions, as they are calling them. What is the IDF saying right now, and what can we see in the upcoming hours?
Hey there, Gadi. Well, overnight, the Israeli military released a lengthy and detailed statement outlining the operation. I want to walk you through the statement because the details here, Gadi, are important. The statement saying that troops have begun limited, localized, and targeted raids against Hezbollah terror targets in the border area of southern Lebanon. It adds that the raids began a few hours ago in accordance with the decision by the political echelon, seeming to reference there the Israeli cabinet, which met earlier in the evening, and that the ground raids are based on precise intelligence against Hezbollah terrorist targets and infrastructure, saying, quote, these targets are located in villages close to the border and pose an immediate threat to Israeli communities in northern Israel. The statement adds that they were training and preparing for the operation in recent months, and that the Israeli Air Force and IDF artillery are supporting the ground forces with precise strikes on military targets in the area. So this is what we know of the operation so far. I think it's worth pointing out that in this statement, the Israelis are clearly not calling this an invasion. They're also not even using the word incursion. Instead, they're referring to it as a, quote, series of targeted raids, seeming there to emphasize that this operation by its nature is more limited in scope. Now, we did hear from the Israeli defense minister earlier in the day saying that this is a new phase of this war. Gadi.
Aaron, they may not be calling it an invasion or an incursion, but people in Lebanon seem to be calling it that. Do we know the scope of how many troops may be in Lebanon right now? We know that thousands of troops have been repositioning to northern Israel over the last few days. What do these operations look like at this point?
Well, as I said, they're saying that this is limited in scope, a series of targeted raids. We do know that they have moved a number of battalions into position there on the border just last week, announcing that 2 brigades had moved along the border to join an elite unit that they had already repositioned from southern Gaza to that Lebanese border. Now, in terms of the goals here, the stated goal of the operation is to have some 60,000 Israeli civilians who were forced to evacuate from their homes in northern Israel return. They had left evacuated following October 8th. That is the date when Hezbollah began a series of rocket strikes onto northern Israel in solidarity with Hamas in the wake of the October 7th terror attacks. And on September 17th, that's when the Israeli cabinet formally approved the safe return of those civilians to their homes as a goal of this war. And since then, we've seen a number of targeted attacks against Hezbollah's leadership, including the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah that happened on Friday. The open question now, given that there are Israeli boots on the ground there in southern Lebanon, is when will the Israelis be satisfied that that goal has been reached? That is, Gadi, an open question. And there is, of course, the concern that there could be further escalation.
Yeah, an open question with the moving target. And Courtney, we heard President Biden say earlier that we needed a ceasefire right now, and then this happens. So what is the Pentagon saying about all this tonight?
Well, the Pentagon and the U.S. administration did actually get a little bit of a heads up that the Israeli military was planning this operation. They were told about it hours before it began. Again, as Aaron's been saying, they were told that it would be in limited scope and scale. And here's what that actually looks like. So initially, the Israeli military is doing these things that in the military is often referred to as probing operations. Basically, they send these small units, often special forces units, in to check out areas. Sometimes they'll send in combat engineers to do things like breaching areas, clearing a path so that if they want to send in larger infantry units, they have essentially set the groundwork so that they can move them in. What changed today, though, Gadi, was rather than these smaller probing operations, they're starting to move larger units in. We heard Aaron mention that they've amassed some forces along the border. They have about 5 brigades up there. But what's critical about those brigades is not just that it includes these special operations forces, these more elite units, but it also includes things like logistics and sustainment. I suspect we'll see more of that moving in. Those are the troops who will support the ongoing combat operations that are moving in to this area in southern Lebanon. We also know that they've amassed a number of tanks there. That will sort of be the visual representation of when this movement actually starts to go in. And the U.S. officials are telling us that they expect the Israelis to move in along multiple different axes or several different locations along the border into southern Lebanon. The real question is what does limited in scope and scale and duration actually mean? And that's a question we haven't really gotten a good sense of. As far as what this means for a ceasefire, U.S. officials are still hopeful that there will be some semblance of a ceasefire. But the reality is every single time, with every one of these military moves, that seems to go further and further away, Gadi.
Troop movements that are extremely telling. Aaron McLaughlin and Courtney Kuby, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And NBC News military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Steph Twitty joins us now. If I recall correctly, last time we were talking about this, I believe you may have said something along the lines of watch for the call of reserves, then action on the ground. Here we are today. What do you see happening next?
Yes, so I want to go back to your question that you asked, Courtney. Let me tell you what I believe limited means. First of all, you have to go back to the intended purpose of this operation, and that is to stop the raining of missiles from Hezbollah into northern Israel. That's the reason why Israel has 60,000 people that are displaced right now. And the Israelis have done a great job going after the leadership. You've seen that over the last couple of days, the last week or so. But what they have not been able to do is go after the surface-to-surface missiles that are impacted in the northern Israel. Go after the artillery, go after the mortars, go after the stuff that's down in tunnels, bunkers, and so forth that is impacting operations in northern Israel. And so they're going to have to put boots on the ground in Lebanon to go after those things. Many of those things are in tunnels or in bunkers. They shoot and then move from point A to point B to prevent detection. And so that's why the Israelis are doing what they're doing. They got the command and control. Now they got to get down on the ground and get the root cause of why these missiles are going into northern Israel. Gadi?
And when you're talking about the placement of those missiles and those rockets being underground, Gaza comes to mind. Do you think that it's possible that we could see some of the leveling that we've seen in Gaza in the pursuit of dismantling some of these arms?
I don't think so for Lebanon. I don't think they have the vast and, by the way, dense tunnels that you would see in Gaza. But they do have tunnels. They do have bunkers. And if the Israelis are playing this right, it would be limited. They go in, strike the target, strike the known locations, and then pull out. What we don't want to see is the Israelis occupy Lebanon again. I think that would be a huge cry from the Arab community, even from the United States. But I think if they play this smartly, with the intended purpose of limited operations to defeat the missiles, then I think they're moving in the right direction.
No matter how limited we're talking, real quick, is this an open invitation to Iran to get involved into a wider conflict?
Absolutely. There's always an open invitation, especially we have to go back and understand that Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran, just like Hamas and just like the Houthis. And so I will tell you, Iran does not want to get involved with this because they know, particularly based on what the Israelis have displayed over the last couple of days, that they have the capability to reach out and touch no matter where you are, whether you're the Houthis, whether you're Gaza, whether you're Hezbollah. They can do the same to the Iranians, particularly going after their nuclear capability.
Lieutenant General Twitty, really appreciate your analysis. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
And a major walkout planned at more than a dozen U.S. ports, what it could mean for pretty much everything you buy. First, you got to see this. Heart-stopping moments caught on a police body cam video. A Tulare County, California sheriff's deputy sprinting into a burning home to find a trapped child with Down syndrome. After looking around, the deputy is so overcome by smoke, he runs back outside, but he finds the boy's name, goes inside with the flames still burning. This happens.
Angel? Angel!
Yeah, he's opening doors there. He's moving things around before the smoke is too much once again, but the deputy is not packing it in. After a break for air, someone hands him some sort of cloth to put over his face, and he tries a third time to find Angel inside.
Angel! Angel! Angel, work!
Wow, that is a deputy gasping for air after finding Angel in a back bedroom. He then walks over to an emotional family. The boy, his brother, and the deputy were all treated for smoke inhalation, but they are all expected to be okay. Just an extraordinary rescue by a hero right there. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Tens of thousands are being warned about a chemical fire in Georgia tonight. More on that in just a moment. But first, here are some of the headlines that we're watching right now. Former NBA player Dikembe Mutombo has died. The Hall of Famer passed away from brain cancer. He played everywhere from Denver to Atlanta, Philly, and New York. As center, he blocked over 3,000 shots. He was 58 years old. And a former congressional candidate in Florida was charged for trying to kill his opponent. The DOJ says William Robert Braddock threatened 2 people in 2021. The indictment doesn't name victims, but Representative Ana Paulina Luna beat Braddock in the election. Braddock appeared in court for the first time Thursday. He was brought back to the U.S. after they found him living in the Philippines. And the Education Department is now giving defaulted student loan borrowers until Wednesday to get up to speed with their payments. Those loan payments kicked back in last year after pause during the pandemic. Borrowers were shielded and forgiven for missing payments, which of course could damage credit scores. And the man accused of attempting to assassinate former President Donald Trump in Florida pleaded not guilty to federal charges. Ryan Ruth was spotted with a gun outside Trump's golf course earlier this month. He could spend the rest of his life in prison if he's convicted on all 5 counts. And a judge striking down Georgia's abortion ban, ruling the procedure can resume. Abortion is now legal up to 22 weeks of pregnancy there. The 2022 law basically banned abortion around 6 weeks in the state after the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade. The state's attorney general is now vowing to appeal. And right now, over 90,000 people are having to shelter in place outside of Atlanta after a chemical plant fire erupted over the weekend. Now, you've probably seen the video of those ominous thick gray and weird orange smoke images filling the sky there. Thousands were asked to evacuate the immediate area. A nearby highway was shut down as well. And Georgia's largest school district canceled all outdoor activities and events today. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar joins us now from Lithonia, Georgia. Priya, we've seen a lot of smoke, but those orange clouds looked particularly apocalyptic. Were they as dangerous as they looked? And how's the air out there today?
Yeah, Gadi, I mean, it looked like something out of a movie. And what's even crazier is we're entering hour 40 from when this all began. This all started at around 5:30 in the morning on Sunday. And that original shelter in place warning was supposed to be lifted at midnight last night, but it's gotten consistently extended. The good news, however, is the EPA officials have said that they've tested the air in this area. And while they did find chlorine, which of course is problematic, it wasn't at extremely high levels that they thought it would be very problematic for most adults, they said. However, they did want to warn people about the symptoms that you can experience if you do get chlorine exposure. You can have shortness of breath. You can have a runny nose, coughing, vomiting, nausea, dizziness. Now, people in other neighboring counties as far away as Atlanta, even 25 miles away, were also reporting that they could see the same sort of haze and that odor that people here in this area were experiencing. And it even prompted the mayor of Atlanta to dispatch Atlanta firefighters to test the air over there. The good news, again, they haven't detected any chlorine in other areas. I will say, having spent the entire day here right outside an evacuation site, this is one of the places that the 17,000 people who were evacuated could come to and spend the night. It kind of smelled like you were in a giant swimming pool. And I don't mean to minimize that or make light of it, but of course this plant where the fire started actually made cleaning treatment products that were used in swimming pools. So it's not really that surprising that then when you have massive amounts of chlorine in the air that it's going to smell like a giant swimming pool, Gadi.
I was just going to ask you, Priya, I mean, when this first started, a lot of people were talking about biolab, right? And something about a biolab. Was it a biological lab, or was this just a place with that name that made pool chemicals?
Yeah, so this was a plant that made pool and spa treatment chemicals. And essentially what we're hearing from the fire chief, we haven't heard the official cause of the fire, but basically what she said is that a sprinkler system malfunctioned and that water came out of the sprinkler system and it reacted with chemicals inside of that facility. And those chemicals were not very friendly with water. So to make matters worse, imagine a fire erupted, firefighters come onto the scene and they want to use water, I should say, to put out the fire, but that was just making matters worse. So they were able to essentially get the fire out, and then around noon on Sunday, it erupted once again. So really right now, even though we're still seeing a little bit of smoke in the air, that smoke is not coming from fire anymore. The fire chief has said there is no more fire. That's coming from the off-gassing of the chemicals inside of that plant, Gadi.
Wow, a fire potentially started by water. That is wild. What is the biggest concern right now?
So the biggest concern is essentially making sure that the air quality is good enough for people to resume their everyday lives. Actually, the public school system here in this county closed today. Most government facilities closed, lots of businesses closed. And really what the officials here want is for people to be able to return to their normal lives. We spoke to some waitresses who worked at a Waffle House, which was right next to that biolab, and they said that because of all of this, they lost a lot of money over the last few days because they basically had to shut down and no one's really moving around. So right now, the number one concern is getting rid of those chemicals inside of that facility and making sure that the air quality levels are good enough that people can basically go outside again.
Yeah, hoping for some normalcy soon. Priya Sridhar, thank you. And chances are, when the clock strikes midnight on the East Coast tonight, 45,000 dock workers will be on strike. Now, this is no small thing. Just last week, $14 billion worth of trade arrived at the East and Gulf Coast ports that will be impacted here. So even just a one-day walkout could have lasting consequences. NBC senior business correspondent Christine Romans has a breakdown on the rough seas ahead. Christine, what can you tell us?
Time is running out for a new deal to keep some of America's biggest ports working. 14 ports all the way from New England to Texas. Tens of thousands of dock workers vowed to walk off the job at midnight and to strike. Their 6-year contract is up at midnight. They want more pay and limits to automation. Now, for its part, the folks they are negotiating with say there hasn't really been much negotiating at all. The White House saying they need these two parties to get back to the bargaining table table and to figure this out through bargaining. Big retailer associations have said this is a dangerous precedent here. They need to get a deal struck. But right now, no deal with just hours to go before 14 ports essentially will be idled. Now, the Dock Workers Union says there still will be cruise traffic at these ports. They still will be handling military cargo and military materiel. That will continue. There are big commodities contracts. They're on a different contract. But this is the kind of a work stoppage that could cost billions of dollars a day. Even if it's a short work stoppage, every day you have these ports closed, it can take 5 days, some people say even a week, to sort of catch up. And the longer you go here, it becomes the first big test of the supply chain since COVID. So clock is ticking, no deal, a strike is affected. Retailers and importers have been scrambling to get all of the goods they think they need. But work stoppage with that kind of volume, that kind of quantity is something that could lead to higher prices and maybe other shortages if it's something that lasts a long time. Back to you.
Christine Romans, thank you. And still ahead, new trial tonight in New Mexico. Why a judge declined the Rust Armorer's request for her conviction to be thrown out despite Alec Baldwin's charges being dismissed. That's straight ahead, so stay tuned. And turning now to the latest in the Rust movie shooting case. Remember how in that case against Alec Baldwin, the entire thing was thrown out? Well, the armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was convicted of the same charges Alec faced before all that, has been trying to get her case overturned now, too. But today, a judge denied that request. Gutierrez-Reed is serving an 18-month prison sentence for the involuntary manslaughter of Helena Hutchins. And today, the judge ruled that the evidence she said was suppressed in Baldwin's case did not warrant a dismissal in Gutierrez-Reed's case. Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Sinadella. Angela, so suppressed evidence here. How could it matter so much in one case but not in the other on the same charges?
So, Gadi, the biggest difference here that the judge discussed was that of access. So in Baldwin's case, his lawyers claim they never saw this ammo, heard of it, had any idea that it existed until the trial began. They said they would have changed their entire legal strategy had they known of this. And so thus the judge ruled there's only one remedy here, which is dismissal of the charges. Now, in terms of Gutierrez-Reed case, the time analysis there is very different because it was actually her own defense witness that brought forth this ammo to begin with, and in fact brought it forth to her own defense lawyers, who then decided to not use it in the trial and not call him up to the witness stand. So in that case, the judge said, look, she had access and Baldwin didn't. So that is the big difference. The second, though, has to do with prosecutorial misconduct. So Baldwin's team, we saw here that they argued during that crazy long hearing that the misconduct came from separating the ammo into a different case file, that showed that it was intentional, that they meant to exclude it, and so as a result, all charges had to be dismissed. Now, with Gutierrez-Reed's case, the timeline is again different because none of that separation, that exclusion, happened until after her case had started.
And Angela, we keep hearing from the New Mexico prosecutor asking the judge to reconsider dismissing Baldwin's charges. Is his case done, or is there a chance that that could come back as well?
So, Gadi, it's mostly done, but it's not 100% done because, yes, she did ask the judge to reconsider her decision. And among these arguments was that apparently she claims that his team knew of this ammo. So this whole argument that they didn't know of it until that trial started, her team is claiming is totally false. So we'll see, though. I mean, this is the same judge that made the decision. After the judge makes a decision here, either side could technically appeal that, so we could see more action to come, Gadi.
I feel like we haven't seen the last of this. Angela Sinadella, thank you so much. And before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Strict AI legislation. We've been talking about it for a while. It was just vetoed by California's governor. We're joined by the lawmaker who wrote the bill for his reaction and the protections he says need to be put into place now. And in tonight's Future of Everything, these would have been the strictest rules yet on artificial intelligence until California Governor Gavin Newsom decided to veto this legislation over the weekend. We are talking about State Senate Bill 1047, and that would have made it law that tech companies had to build a kill switch, turn off AI systems, and tech giants like OpenAI, Google, and Meta all came out against that bill, basically saying it was too broad, too focused on large models, and could potentially stifle innovation. And in a statement yesterday, Governor Newsom said, quote, "I agree with the author of the bill. We cannot afford to wait for a major catastrophe to occur before taking action to protect the public, but I do not agree. However, that to keep the public safe, we must settle for a solution that is not informed by an empirical trajectory analysis of AI systems and capabilities." And joining us now is the author of that bill, State Senator Scott Wiener. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. We reached out to the governor. His office said he couldn't join tonight. But have you been in touch with him? And what's your response to his veto?
I've not spoken to the governor since the veto, but my response is that I strongly disagree with the veto, and I think some of the statements in the veto, unfortunately, were not accurate. However, he's the governor, and the governor gets the final word. And so I am grateful that the governor acknowledged in the veto message that these risks are real, and that we do need to get out ahead of the risks instead of waiting for something terrible to happen. And so I look forward to working with the governor and others toward legislation next year.
Next year. I mean, the clock is kind of ticking here. Talking specifics, the governor says he agrees with the need for regulation and not to wait until it's too late. But then he adds, we need an empirical trajectory analysis of AI systems and capabilities. Like, what does that mean to you? And, you know, I asked ChatGPT about that, and it said could take months, could take years. So what kind of timeline are we talking about here?
Yeah, we're on a short timeline. And just to be clear, I'm an optimist about AI. AI is going to make the world in many ways a better place, but it is an increasingly hyper-powerful technology, and there are risks, and we need to get ahead of those risks now, not later. I do want to take issue with that, whatever that statement means in the governor's veto message about an empirical analysis. This bill was not just, we didn't just randomly throw it together. This bill was crafted by experts in artificial intelligence and was informed by and supported by the two most cited AI researchers ever. So we had support from some of the absolute most brilliant people in AI, and they helped us put the bill together. So this is a very well-informed and well-constructed bill.
Empirical, almost. Now, when we're talking again about the specifics here, do you see a bill that may divvy up some of what's inside of it right now? One of the things that caught my eye, obviously, the kill switch. Is that going to be in this omnibus regulation bill, or do you think it'll be part of future proposals that could be separate?
Well, I'm not sure because I don't know what the governor intends, and I don't know what this work group he's put together is going to recommend. What I know is that if you look at the major elements of the bill, one of them is requiring the largest tech companies when they're creating truly large, powerful models to perform a safety evaluation before they release the model, which they have all already committed to do. So they've committed to it. We just want it to be not voluntary. What you refer to as the kill switch is simply an ability to shut down or turn off a model if it's in your possession, which I think is very common sense and most people would agree. And then the third major pillar of the bill is whistleblower protection, so that if there are technologists that are working at a large lab and they see something that they think is dangerous, that they can blow the whistle on it and not be retaliated against. So next year, I'm not sure how it'll play out. All of those elements I think are very good, and could be in separate bills or one bill. I have no idea, but we're committed to this issue.
Yeah, keyword there, next year. State Senator, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Before we head out tonight, a programming note. Tomorrow, Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz are squaring off for the first time and the only time in the vice presidential debate. Watch the debate on NBC and NBC News Now with full coverage starting right here at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll be back on Wednesday, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.